Okay, so this is my elevator pitch, and I'm just going to read it like I do in my presentation. This is for people who want to know what MMT is, but they don't have the time to sit down for a full lesson. And we don't. That's exactly our situation right now. So this is my way of sort of tempting people to want to learn the subject of modern monetary theory. So here we go. This is my MMT elevator pitch. Modern monetary theory, or MMT, is the study of how our economy actually functions. MMT shows why powerful always get what they want, and why the people only get crumbs, nothing at all, or even less than that. MMT shows exactly how we can actually get the programs that we need to survive. It also shows that our government can easily give us these things tomorrow if they wanted, and could have given us these things decades ago if they wanted. The powerful have always known MMT for war and for tax breaks. They just do it. But when it comes to healthcare and education and forgiving student debt and a federal job guarantee, suddenly they forget about MMT. Suddenly it's, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? And the way that I like to sort of summarize it up in a cute way is MMT for the rich, rugged neoliberalism for the poor.
Amen.
Okay, so that's the elevator pitch.
I love that pitch. It's really great.
Cool, thanks. So let's see, where are we? Oh, here we go. So we are fiat currency. That means that our money is not based on anything. It's not pegged to anything. Our money used to be pegged to gold. It used to be, we're not allowed, our laws said that we were not allowed to spend more money if we didn't have gold to back it up. We are not that way anymore. That stopped in 1971. So now our money is not backed by anything physical. And that's the same for England, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and the European Union. So they're all fiat currencies. And fiat means by decree or by decision. So that means that we're allowed to create, the federal government, the Congress, is allowed to create the money because they decide to, because they decree it into existence. You and I are currency users, same with states and cities and other countries even, as far as the dollar is concerned. We use the money. And that means that we must get income from someone else before we can spend it. And that is, we don't issue the currency. We don't create the currency. We're not allowed to create the currency. We could go to jail if we try to do so. The federal government, however, the Congress, is the currency issuer. They're the only ones that are allowed to create the money. They don't have a bank above them. We have a bank above us. We have to go to a bank and ask for money. And if they decide that we are worthy of that, then they'll give us a loan. And then if they give us that loan, we're immediately in debt to that bank, 100% plus interest. There's no equivalent situation for the government, for the federal government, for the Congress. There's no equivalent situation. There is no bank above Congress. And that distinction is the most important distinction that there is. So to say that the government is in debt, or to say that the government has to borrow, or to say that the government needs income from anyone or anything is nonsensical. Yeah. It's nonsensical because there is no bank above. Absolutely. They are the god of the U.S. dollar. And to say that they have to go borrow it, or they're going to go broke, or they have to borrow it or take it from taxpayers in order to spend is nonsense, because they're allowed to create it. And they can create as much as they want, whenever they want, for whatever they want. Yeah. Now, just a really important clarification is that, yes, they could create out as much as they want, but that doesn't mean that in reality, that's possible, because in reality, there are only so many resources that we have. Absolutely. So yes, theoretically, we could create as much money as the Congress can create as much money as they want. But if they do so beyond what our resources can handle, that is what causes inflation, and that is the limitation that makes it impossible to actually do so. And it's the same thing as saying that you and I can commit crimes all day long. There's nothing stopping us from. Theoretically, we could commit crimes all day long. We could just go around and punch people in the face and rob banks all day long. We could. However, the reality is the police, law enforcement, social mores, the consequences of actually doing that make it impossible. So it's the same thing as the Congress can create as much money as it wants, but there is the reality of what's outside of human control, which is our real resources. So let's see. So yes, as your whole show is based around our academia, our government, our politicians, our so-called experts, and even a lot of our economists tell us that our government is the same as our households. That's the household analogy. That they pretend that the government is just like a household. That they must get income from someone before they can spend. We're going to blow a hole in the deficit. We must pay back the debt. What does that mean to pay back the debt for someone who can create the currency? What does that mean? So that's the big lie, is pretending that the federal government is like you and I, pretending that the issuer of the currency is like the user of the currency, that they see the economy in the same way. So I think that's a good place to stop.
Absolutely.
Now, clearly, there's so many questions if you don't know anything about monetary theory. So I hope that would encourage you to see the full lesson, go look at the tutorial, go find out more for yourself. But I think that gives a brief basis enough that we can continue on.
Yes, I agree with you. Actually, I mean, I've already watched several, versions of your explanation. And I think this one is the best so far. You're getting better and better, and you're compacting it and making it more concise and precise. And
that's great. Thank you.
That's really good so far. And it's definitely pointing out, the unfairness in the overall setup of the system, where we have just a few people who can literally, they are gods because they can issue currency. And it's one thing to say, okay, well, it's a Federal Reserve. Well, Federal Reserve, that's people, right? That's just a name for a group of people who type in stuff on the computer. They engage in some behavior that will produce whatever, money being given to certain, to be spent in our economy. So it really always comes down to human beings making conscious decisions and saying that we're going to reserve the right to create our own currency, which means we can do anything. I don't have to work to have money. I can just wish it into existence. And of course, the closer people who are the closest to those people are going to be protecting that secret because they will get a little bit off of that created money. And then people are next to them. And then this is where we have our separation of classes. The people who are closest to the people who are breaking the biggest rules and telling the biggest lies are the most reinforced and the most rewarded. And the people who are at the very end are being lied to and are basically subsidizing all of that theft and lies.
Right. And I want to just make a quick clarification, which is that the Federal Reserve is the bank of the government. But the Federal Reserve, according to the Constitution, is at the command of Congress. It's not like a bank above me and you where we go and ask. The Federal Reserve only does what the Congress tells them to do based on the Constitution.
So the power is up to Congress and whoever's pulling the strings and paying the representatives.
Right. So the Federal Reserve does in fact create the money.
Yeah.
But they only do it at the instruction of Congress after a bill is put into law and then the budget.
Got it. So they're like the printer, and without someone pressing the printer button, the printer's not going to start printing. Is that what you mean? Okay. Yes. So, but we still need a hand to push that button, and that's a human hand. So I'm trying to bring that this is not just some evil machines who are doing this to our economy. These are actual human beings who are like making a decision to consciously screw a large population of United States citizens while promoting their whole agenda and basically putting more resource in their pocket. This brings them power. When you have more than others, you can tell them what to do. They're more desperate to do the things that they don't even want to do. And this is how you basically manipulate the behaviors of human beings that are in Congress and that are all over, are part of the system, are the cogs in the machine.
Well, the reason that we are told the big lie, which is that the currency issuer is the same as a currency user, meaning they have to get income before they spend, which doesn't make sense for the currency issuer. But the reason that they want you to feel that that's the case is because they want you to feel that asking for what we need to survive will cause economic chaos. So therefore, we can't ask for it.
Because so they're scaring us off from things that we need.
Exactly. And it's the same with privatization, Social Security. Any federal program they say that Social Security is going to go broke, Medicare is going to go broke. But what does that even mean? Because all federal programs are funded by created currency. Every time benefits are paid for Social Security, currency is created. Every time a salary of an FBI agent is paid, currency is created. It doesn't make sense to say that Social Security is going to go broke. But that's all we hear. Social Security is going to go broke. The Republicans want to steal from Social Security. They need to borrow from Social Security. That doesn't make sense because there's no money to take. Currency is created. But they want to pretend. They want to pretend that it's the same for issuers and users because that makes it more valid to say that it will go broke. And therefore they can privatize it and put it in the hands of private corporations who can profit off of it and control it.
That's right. And it's also, I think it's a brilliant strategy to do that if you were on obviously the evil side of things, because it works. It works when a person understands, well, I have a household, I know how that works. And yeah, if I spend too much, I'm going to go broke. So people definitely relate to that idea. And as soon as you tell them, we can go broke, don't you know how your neighbor went broke? And they're like, oh no, it's true. They spent too much and they went broke and I don't want to go broke. So this whole and again, this comes from scientific research of how do I get a person to feel that they're going to go broke? So after hundreds of years of testing, well, what exactly is going to make a person feel this way is how this whole thing is implemented, because it's just so brilliantly hidden. This is the basic truth right here, what we're talking about. And the fact that it's not just having people rioting down the street and saying, what is wrong with you? You can't print your own money. You know what I mean? We're letting them do it every single day. And it's insane.
You're absolutely right. And if the big lie is true, if Social Security can go broke, if they need income before they can spend, the federal government, if that's true, where are they going to get it from? Obviously, they're going to get it from other countries that borrow it. If the big lie is true, they must get it from other countries. They must get it from taxpayers. But when you get if you were to get money from taxpayers, if the lie was true, then that means you would get it from taxpayers. And of course, the wealthy have the most money to give. So therefore, the wealthy funds the government if the big lie is true. And therefore, that even further puts power into their hands. Because if they're going to fund the government, then they have a say in the government. So, and it's class warfare. It really promotes class warfare.
Absolutely.
That we must take money from the powerful in order to help give the people what they need to survive. And the big lie promotes class warfare, and it's economically inaccurate. We need to tax the rich because they're too rich. They're too powerful. They can buy politicians and change the laws. But we don't tax them because we need their money. That doesn't even make sense to say that.
Absolutely, yes. And that's definitely another trick that is, as that counter MMT point is when they're trying to tell us that, oh, you just want to take everything from the rich and you're just jealous because you're poor and yada. It just promotes that separation of people, even though both of the classes have currency just put into economy. You know what I mean? And they have to be absolutely taxed because it gives too much power to buy politicians. And that's when the whole, why should I participate in society like that?
It undermines our democracy.
Absolutely.
It tears our democracy, tears our democracy apart to have the rich be as rich as they are in this country. And it also, they can't become more rich unless they extract out the well-being of others.
Absolutely. That's another point that I want to, that I completely agree with you and I always make is that the excess of one group doesn't just come out of nowhere, out of thin air. It comes at a cost of the deficit of another group.
You're absolutely right. I think there is a reasonable level of rich that you can become rich without hurting others.
Yes,
But I
agree with you.
think that you're correct, though.
But we're talking about Jeff Bezos.
Point,
we're talking about obscene amount of wealth.
Oh yeah, and then after some point, you start extracting off other people, and then after that, you can buy politicians and make it even worse.
There are levels, and I agree with you. There is a level of income that does not hurt people. You can be very comfortable, and I mean that's why we love America, because it does exist. But it's just been taken to such an extreme, and that the middle class have basically been wiped out because of the egregious, I guess, predatory behavior that is allowed by law in this country.
Yep, I agree.
How has learning MMT impacted your own behavior? Perhaps maybe it's voting, maybe it's spending, maybe it's the way that you invest, things like that.
I don't spend another second talking about Trump. I have completely stopped worrying about any issues except money in politics, global warming, Medicare for all, federal job guarantee, forgiven student debt. If your conversation has nothing to do with any of those things, I really have no time for it, because that's all that matters. And when we talk about deficit, when we talk about debt, when we fight over taxes, all of these things that make no sense. And when we talk about Trump, yeah, he's a problem, but he's a symptom. Mm-hmm. He's not the problem. He's not the cause. He is a symptom of the problem that we have. And I don't have time for that. And all of these distractions, we spend more time on distractions than we do on the things that matter most, which is sort of the point of what MMT is trying to get. What, for me, MMT has taught me is that we spend most of our time talking about the money for federal programs when we don't even need to talk about it. It makes no sense to talk about where we're going to get the taxes from, because they don't fund federal programs. So the only things that matter to me, which have really, it's just sort of shed all of the distractions, that I've stopped listening to mainstream media. I mean, completely, because when I go back to it, it's none of the things that matter. Yeah. The only things that matter is getting money out of politics, dealing with global warming, Medicare for all, federal job guarantee, and forgiven student debt, and probably some other of those kinds of important programs that we need. Those are the only things that matter. So it has focused me on, I think, what is most important, and stopped me from worrying about all of these other things. Yes, there are huge problems that we have with racism and prejudice of all kinds, and that's real. But for me, the center of it all is money in politics, and until the people understand modern monetary theory, until the people understand how our economy works, we're going to continue asking for what we want in a way that makes it less and less likely to ever get it. So like progressives really taught us really well what's wrong and what could be better. But most progressives, including Bernie Sanders and the Young Turks and the real big guys, completely mess up when it gets to the point of how we're actually going to get it.
Yeah.
And until we start to learn how the economy actually works, we will never get them.
Yeah.